Web design is dead. Twitter's head of communication is out the door. And Google needs to improve its SEO. Can anyone help? Welcome to This Week in Organic, episode number 8.
This Week's in Organic. Live from London on thisweekinorganic.com.
Broadcasting live from London, welcome to This Week in Organic, the weekly show that debates the ramifications of the latest SEO and content marketing news. Sign up to watch the next show live at thisweekinorganic.com. Hello and welcome, I'm David Bain, and each week I'll be joined by some knowledgeable, opinionated folks to discuss the latest happenings in anything that impacts organic traffic. And as for you, dear viewer, get involved. We'd love to hear your opinion too. So just use the hashtag TWIO on Twitter. So that's TWIO. And if you're watching live, your thoughts will magically appear in the chat box to your right-hand side. So let's find out more about today's guests, where they're from, and what's caught their attention this week. So starting off with ladies first, Kit.
Okay, hi. My name's Kit Nichols. I'm the Global Account Manager here at Deepcrawl. And we are a cloud-based web crawling tool designed to identify on-page technical issues in your site's architecture in order to help inform an SEO strategy. And the story I'm most interested in this week is about Google hiring an SEO manager and what that means for the perception of SEO.
Absolutely, quite a bit of chat going on in Twitter about that this week. So from my left-hand side on the screen, Adam.
Hi, David. Thanks for having me. So,
welcome. So tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you do. That'd be great.
So my name is Adam Whittles. I'm an SEO director here at Maxis, based in London. We're a global media agency, part of the Group M network of agencies. So you may have heard of some of our sister agencies, Mediacom, MEC and Mindshare. And the topic that I'm interested in that's happened this week is the hreflang tag. So Google starting to notify webmasters of errors with the hreflang tags.
That's right, yeah. Thousands of emails apparently going out about that. So we'll be interested to hear people's opinion about that. But moving on to Chris.
Hi, so I'm Chris Bland. I'm a client director here at Havas Media. We are another global network agency, slightly smaller than the Group M that was mentioned before. And the topic I'm kind of keenest to speak about today is the web design topic. Apparently web design is dead. I think it brings up a whole host of issues about where we should be focusing marketing efforts on the non-media side, which is often overlooked.
Yeah, I'm normally reading articles called SEO is dead, but so I guess web design is dead is a little bit novel there. So Johnny next.
Yes, hi everyone, thanks for having me. Johnny Ross, founder of Johnny Ross Consultancy, digital marketing agency up in Yorkshire, in Leeds. And I am very interested in what Kit said, which is this hire of the SEO manager. Really interesting indeed. But I was also interested in Gabrielle Stricker, who's left as head of communications at Twitter, and what that means for Twitter and where Twitter's going, really. But always glad to be here and happy to talk about anything.
Lovely. And last but not least, Mark.
Hi, thanks for having me back. Hopefully that means I was reasonably intelligible last time round. I work here at Blue Rubicon, Associate Director on the digital team, where we're all quite excited because last night we won one of these again. We had Digital Team of the Year, second year running at the Corporate Comms Awards. Anyway, that's my little bit of plugging over. In terms of, I think, the stories, there's loads of great stories everyone else has mentioned. I think the one that particularly caught my eye was the Pinterest CEO, Ben Silbermann, talking about how he wants the site to be seen as a catalogue and not a social network, which I must admit at first did sound just a bit like jargon and so on. But thinking about it more, I think there's a lot of interesting stuff hidden away in that phraseology.
Yeah, absolutely. Quite interesting there. And if I was faster with my finger there, Mark, I would have gone, yay. So, yeah, no, but let's move on to the first topic. So, who'd have thought it? Google looking for an SEO manager. somebody to keep pace with all the latest visibility trends and help to optimize Google's blog and social strategy. And you need 2 years of experience. Johnny, you look as if you're dying to apply for that position.
I've already applied. Well, I mean, yeah, what does it mean for SEO? I'm lost for words. Why are they putting a job out for an SEO manager to increase organic search? Are they trying to put a message out there that they are trying to be whiter than white and are only ranking their pages very naturally and very organically? Is that what they're trying? Is it a message to try and say, look, you know, even though we own the system, we're not going to cheat the system? I'm a bit confused, to be perfectly honest. Kit, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I actually think it's a fantastic opportunity for whoever it is that ends up with the role. It's going to pretty much, I'm sure it will pretty much guarantee some amazing prospects in the future. Anyone's going to want someone who's worked at Google to do their SEO. I don't envy the person who has to take it on. I mean, I think it's a really positive change for the SEO industry for a couple of reasons. Firstly, it shows that the company has or is recognizing that SEO is an important and valuable marketing channel. And secondly, it may finally put an end to the SEO is dead rumours or the SEO is dead stories that have been around for years.
It's certainly an interesting move. I can't imagine Google doing it even a couple of years ago, perhaps even with Matt Cutts there. So it is quite incredible for them to mention it, but perhaps it's also a move towards the direction of saying SEO is now about site performance and making sure that everything on site is optimized well, because I wouldn't imagine there's going to be too much outreach looking for links there from Google's perspective. But you never know.
This has to be it's got to be more about a strategic message than actually fulfilling a role, surely.
Maybe it's something Google's PR agency are focusing on. I'm not sure. Yes,
I wouldn't be surprised if they do have a need for it. I mean, I already know of certain agencies that have done bits and pieces for Google in the past on for their SEO and content as well. So I'm a little bit, I guess, less skeptical on that side. I think they do have a need for it, and I think it's good on Google for recognizing that they do need some kind of SEO. It's not okay, they are the main search engine, but they do recognize that they need someone with those skills to help out on the digital marketing side.
That's interesting that you're seeing it fairly positively there. Chris, do you look at it in a similar manner, that it's quite a progressive move by Google to do this?
I think it's very different. It's one thing to have someone in place who can optimize Google's web properties so that it appears better, and I'm not sure if necessarily that's what it indicates. After all, they're asking for somebody with 2 years or more experience. Now, there are a lot of talented people with 2 years experience, but if you're Google, you probably want someone with a little bit more than that. So I tend to think that what they're looking for is somebody who's able to speak to clients or at least talk to the teams who do speak to clients, because obviously there's a bit of a Chinese wall around the whole organic output from Google, so you can't speak to anybody about it. However, there have been times when I've worked at agencies where we have trained their paid search teams in organic, so they understood some of the concerns and methods that we were looking at as an SEO agency. So it's clear that on their side, on the paid side, because there is such little communication between the two sides of the page internally, they don't often get to think organically, and I think having somebody internally who can start to maybe progress some of that might be where they're going. Obviously there are some bits and bobs, there's some hygiene factors which they probably need to address as well, but I don't know. I think it's probably a bit more of a PR stunt, given it's been so public as well.
And what about yourself, Mark? Well, would you say that it's just a good opportunity for Google to actually start tying their business together and understanding all aspects in terms of the reactions to what they're doing that happen to obviously their websites and Google results? Do you view it fairly positively?
Yeah, there were two things that particularly struck me about the job ad. One was how much of it is management, and I think that's something that's often forgotten with SEO work in larger organisations, that having the right technical and even sort of semi-creative skills is really important. But if you're dealing with a larger organisation, the basic sort of project management, coordination of different people, etc., is really key. And the other thing that struck me was how much the job is focused on their cloud offering. And in a way, part of the job and what we can draw from it is to do with SEO. But the other bit that we can draw from it is that Google is thinking that the cloud offering is really important. And there's obviously a whole world of sort of competition there, as increasingly firms, I think, are starting to decide, well, actually, if it's, do we want to trust and put resources into our in-house IT team, or do we want to trust big multinational? And I try and phrase that in a reasonably neutral way. And there are obviously good arguments either way. I know back when I used to be running an email server, I would always trust somebody like Yahoo, as it was in those days, much more than my own ability to keep an email server up and running. And I think there's lots of interesting dilemmas there.
Yeah, no, trust is an interesting thing. One thing we were talking about last week is the fact that you can't just rely on a standard click-through rate model from search engine results nowadays, because certain domains that are known to that searcher are more likely to get a click as well. So even if you have a generic search result, then if you have someone perhaps like Amazon result 5 or 6, I can't imagine them being 5 or 6. They'd probably be number one for most things. But if they were, then that would get more clicks than your average click-through rate in that position. So I mean, trust brand absolutely massive now. But also Google are also in relation to this sending out incorrect hreflang implementation notices to webmasters now. So Google needs more help at determining which sites are targeting which countries maybe. So I guess the question is, should every website be using hreflang? Is hreflang important and becoming more important than it ever was? Adam, would you like to be first at tackling this one?
Absolutely. Thanks, David. It's I guess this is one of those that's quite close to my heart as well, because we've been dealing with a lot of clients, certainly on the technical side, recently, where hreflang tag has been an issue. Certain sites that we've been working with, large e-commerce sites, they do implement the hreflang tag, but we have seen in certain countries where incorrect pages are ranking for the wrong region, for the wrong country. Specifically, we're seeing a lot of US pages ranking in, for example, in the UK market or in other perhaps less important markets as well. And it just shows that the hreflang tag is a powerful signal and a powerful message to Google to ensure that they're ranking the correct page within the correct region as well.
Yeah, they seem to struggle with a few things like that, and understandably, there are so many web pages out there. I remember when I was doing a launch of a Romanian website for a business a year or so ago, and we found it difficult initially to stop the pages appearing within the US search results, and that was actually with the hreflang tag in there as well. So it can be challenging. Chris, do you think hreflang is something that every business needs to be aware of, or is it only multinationals with lots of different websites?
Well, I think given the fact that there are so many English-speaking markets, and for that matter, Spanish-speaking markets, there's going to be a hell of a lot of duplication. So I think it is something that businesses, we say businesses, but you'd hope webmasters or perhaps the SEO person at businesses, because this is a very technical piece that in amongst all of the marketing knowledge that is that a client is supposed to hold in their head, this is probably one of the areas that they're probably least familiar with. So I think it certainly is important, as Adam mentioned there. I think it's a technicality that needs to be observed to make sure that you've there's hygiene factors I mentioned earlier to make sure things are right. But as you say, you can do everything in your power and still find yourself at fault or misrepresented through Google's platform. They don't have, it's all automated. The manual review process is only for the strictly evil among us, and so it's hard really to kind of make it the fault of webmasters in the way that they are, when actually you'd expect there to be so many off-site indicators, like perhaps traffic sources, that would be a pretty obvious indication of the sorts of the sort of traffic that a website ought to be generating. They are using off-site indicators for ranking factors, so you'd expect them to be able to use that to determine whether a site is supposed to be ranking well in the US or the UK. So I think it's again, as with all things Google, there's an element of practicality and an element of PR to make things look like they are doing the right thing, giving people a chance, but actually probably the fault is theirs for not using the evidence around them.
I blame Bitly. No, I'm only joking. But of course, sites like that, using .ly domains originally from for Libya, mean that Google can't necessarily trust the top-level domains that a website has that are definitely targeting a specific country. Johnny, do you think hreflang is more important now than it ever has been?
Yeah, I do actually. I agree with what you've just said, because I was about to say that with the rise of vanity domains, .agency and .photography and .music, etc., and I've got a vanity Bitly account which ends with a Russian domain, I think it's really important. I think ultimately, there's always going to be mistakes. It could be on both sides. So Google makes mistakes, but at the same time, not through sometimes the lack of trying, but developers can end up giving multiple tags or incorrect tags on different pages. So I think it's both sides of the coin, and I think that the key thing really is to make sure that you use the settings inside Google Webmaster Tools as well. I don't think you can rely on data either, because it's a vicious circle. If a site's getting a load of traffic from Russia, does that mean that it should be shown more inside Russia, or is it because it's being shown to the wrong audience in the first place? So probably a bad example, Russia. I don't know why I'm using that one, but no, I think they're really important. But I think with any of these things, it's easy to make mistakes, and so it's really important to have a robust process and to triangulate it by using settings in Google Webmaster Tools as well.
Johnny, you've got a nice tweet here. Stephanie Ketcher saying, "Great to see JR Consultancy on TWIO again." There you go. You got a good
thanks, Stephanie.
That's your Russian alias, is it?
So Kit, you've obviously you work for DeepCrawl, so obviously you've access to a lot of stats there, looking at websites, perhaps seeing if sites are actually correctly implementing things like hreflang. Do you think there are lots of websites out there that are just doing it wrong?
I think, yeah, I mean, to be honest, yes. I think you often come across websites where hreflang is implemented incorrectly. And I think this move is, I think it will give SEOs and webmasters the boost that they may need in order to get an hreflang review added into an SEO strategy. So I think I do think it's a good move, or it's a helpful move for the SEO industry or for the search industry. I think that all sites should be aware of the hreflang implementation. As to whether every site should start using it, I'm not sure if I would agree with that necessarily. I think it comes down to, there are so many other different technical aspects to a site. I'm more than certain there's going to be a spate of SEOs reviewing their setup following the news. It's a little bit like the HTTPS change that happened when so many webmasters kind of went, oh my, we have to change to HTTPS. So I'm not sure. I think it's important to do, and I think it's important to get right, but to get right on the right sites.
Okay, so there's no need to rush into it. Just because you're getting warnings, it may not necessarily indicate that your website health is in dire need of some action.
No, I think if you... Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think if you're getting warnings, then yes, you should be focusing on international setup. However, I just don't think... I think that the news as a whole is going to cause sites that aren't getting those warnings to start looking at their setup. And I think it's more important to get it right and take the time than to rush into it.
Just one thing I'd like to add as well. Unless you're fortunate enough to have a professional account with DeepCrawl, auditing hreflang tags can be an absolute pain. I think this move from Google just, is going to save a lot of time and help a lot of webmasters, because if you haven't actually tried to audit hreflang tags on thousands of pages, I can tell you now it's very hard, and especially if they're also added to the sitemap rather than added on the page, that can also make it a lot more difficult to audit.
And Chris, also in relation to what Google have been up to, you pointed out that Google have been testing taking hotel bookings. So it's funny, services like Booking.com replaced direct booking hotel websites, and then Airbnb have come along and started to challenge Booking.com's model. So maybe Google are coming along and trouncing all of them. So are Google doing the right thing here? What are your thoughts on that one, Chris?
Well, Google's been wanting to have a direct play in that space for a long time. The Beat That Quote acquisition was how many years ago now? Does everyone still remember that? We're still waiting to see everything come through from that. All of the financial services we're expecting to come on stream. We're seeing insurance provide insurance offers coming through from the States. We're seeing Google buying insurance players in the States so they can offer quotes. We're seeing ticket offers in the UK, and also we're seeing now the hotel bookings. So, bit by bit, Google is making it pretty clear that it likes to go direct, and all the time it kind of wants to play both sides of this fence, doesn't it? It wants to go direct and take advertisers' money. So I'm sure they will find a way of representing advertisers within the Google buying process, and frankly, if they look at their biggest competition, which is rapidly, I think, becoming Amazon at this point when it comes to the sales process, the way that Amazon is starting to appeal to brands to flesh out their position and promote themselves on the platform itself, it's no surprise really that Google wants to try and also cut them off at the pass. And I know that tickets and hotels are a long way from what Amazon seems to be booking at the moment, but you wait, they'll be there too. I think it's really important that Google tries to still head them off at the pass and create a space, create a direct connection, and then allow brands to kind of advertise within it, and that'll create a really nice opportunity and a new branch, I think, in the future for the organic optimization, which is the optimization of the brand positioning platform. So within Amazon and within Google, I think that's a very interesting space.
So, Johnny, when you go away and visit long and distant, faraway places like London, do you want to make hotel bookings on Google, or are you uncomfortable with doing that?
What freaks me out about Google and hotel bookings is when I book a hotel or book a flight using my Google account, and it decides to enter that into my diary. It clearly reading my emails and just throwing it into my diary, and it's just the default is that it does it. It should be an option for me to turn that on, not to turn it off. That's just what I feel. Has anyone else experienced that yet, by the way?
Yeah, they also put it in maps as well. If you hover over the map,
Yes.
the hotel, you see the dates.
It's
And
yeah, you do.
if you ever watch your live streaming before your face on Google Now, with all of your packages being declared delivered, and the time it takes you to get to your next meeting,
Yeah.
and what your blood type is, that's if you want to be alarmed, that's the place to go. Just swipe left.
It's crazy, but I think. I think that Google hasn't, but I think Google hasn't got a choice. So going to your question with regard to the buy button on hotels, I think it is the right move for Google.
Yeah.
I think I'm surprised it's taken this long, and it does make perfect business sense for them.
Well, I mean, if you look also, sorry, just to jump in, that I mean, Facebook's just introduced the buy button onto lots of posts on Facebook, so they absolutely have to do it. It's coming down to the last platform standing, isn't it? We're down to 5, and they're all going to have to start slugging it out. And there's a second tier of brands and clients and all that kind of stuff underneath, having their kind of secondary battle while these titans slug it out on top. So they have to be there.
Yeah.
I think if you're an intermediary at the moment, as long as you've got some other service you can offer, there's nothing really to be scared of or worried about this. I mean, for example, the last product I bought online, completely unglamorous, a garden hose. And I wanted to just get a couple of reviews, is it good, is it not? I want to know, is the product good, not is the firm who makes it and sells it, is their SEO good? So is the product good? Do I need to also buy an adapter or not for the particular type of tap I'm going to want to connect it to? No matter how many fantastic, wonderful, immediate buy direct options there would have been in search results from any search engine, that's never going to answer those slightly more in-depth questions. So as long as you can add some value, it might be reviews, it might be other information, it might be, for example, what hotels.com does, which I book a lot of my hotel trips through them, is I just really like the graphical interface they have to allow you to play off dates versus times versus locations versus sort of how grotty or not grotty the hotel is. There's lots of opportunities to add a little bit of extra value add. And yeah, the people who don't really offer any value add, they're going to find it tough. But, the problem is they don't offer value add.
So lots happening with Google there, but Twitter's communications head, Gabriel Stricker, is out of the door. Twitter appear to have been relatively struggling, actually, with revenue growth recently, and perhaps that's impacted how they're perceived. So does Twitter need to change its revenue model, or is its communication strategy a bit of an issue, or both? Most of us are probably fairly avid tweeters. Are we concerned that Twitter may not have a decent enough business model, and are there issues with the way they do business? Adam, again, are you quite a regular tweeter? And if so, do you like what Twitter are doing at the moment? And do you think they're going to be struggling moving forward from a business perspective?
Yeah, just to answer your original question, David, I do go on Twitter occasionally, probably not as often as I should, but I do certainly use it to find SEO-related information. I think for me, Twitter is very much a quick source, and also keeps me informed of updates that happen really quickly. So I do tend to use it more for that rather than actually tweeting or I guess interacting too much socially. But I think that's always been the question about Twitter is the business model. I think back in the day, as far as I can remember, before they they went to this commercial model, I think there's always been question marks as to how feasible their business model is, and I think these kind of questions are really coming to the fore more recently.
So someone on Twitter at the moment is Johnny Ross, been tweeting to Stephanie and tweeting other things. So Johnny, you're an avid tweeter, but are you quite comfortable with what Twitter represent as a company, and what kind of things they're likely to do in the future, or do you feel fairly in the dark about that?
I think the interesting thing was the Twitter and Google thing coming together yet again. and where that's going to go. I am interested in that because I think that could have a major impact on SEO, and I don't think we've not really seen it in the UK yet. I think that the model, there's a big move away from Twitter that I'm seeing, and I think the biggest reason I see for that is that there is so much spam on there. I think there's a big job for Twitter to do to clear a lot of the spam accounts out, and I know they've tried, but they really need to try harder. And it does concern me about what's going to be in my feed in the future, as in, is it going to be overtaken by too much advertising, by too much sponsored stuff, and is there going to be too much shaping going on, which is what Facebook has done, and is it going to be, so I do wonder what the future will be with Twitter, but I think there's a massive amount of value as well, so it's a tough one.
Chris, Johnny mentioned the deal between Twitter and Google there. Who out of those two do you think is going to win most out of that particular partnership?
It's a good question. They both clearly need to do it. Google, because it has so sorely failed with Google+, and Twitter, because they so desperately need some scale and some search functionality. Twitter, I'm a big fan. I've been on Twitter for, I don't know, a couple of years, maybe 3 years. I do love it for the lateral, the way that ideas are spread and the way that you can just see what people are thinking in the moment. I think its value as a news source has been pointed out recently in the blog. So Twitter, both Twitter and Facebook, really. I mean, we had a really interesting presentation from the Guardian here, talking about the relative traffic they get from different sources, either from Google or from social media, and it looks about 80-20 at the moment. So about 80% coming from Facebook and Twitter, and 20% coming from Google, which is just an amazing. When you see the graph of that switchover over the past few years, that the trend now to people finding out about the news and current affairs from social media is huge, and I think Twitter's got an amazing value. I mean, what people talk about on Twitter is. And it can be so personal. It does tend to be like the slightly more cerebral or intellectual bedfellow, sort of brother or sister of Facebook. You don't get so many cat and dog videos, and you do get the revolutions and the rest of it coming through very, very fast. But I do think it has incredible value at demonstrating upper funnel intent in terms of kind of from an advertiser's perspective. So people talk about what they are about to buy, or what life stage they're at, or where they're going as consumers. And I think even some of the insight that Twitter have shown to us here at Havas has demonstrated their ability to grapple with that insight. But what they make very poorly available is the ability to be able to buy against it. I want to be able to buy people who are demonstrating behavior or talking about topics which indicate that they might be about to buy a new car or something. And better than that, I want to be able to use the data from that programmatically, so that I can then serve display or upweight search campaigns against them, and generally kind of take that information. It's some of the best information you're going to get about a user, and I think it's very hard to actually access at the moment. It'd be better than Experian, it'd be better than any of the third-party data sources. So that's what I'd love to see in terms of kind of the commercial side. But I just want to sneak in one other thing about Twitter, which I'm desperate for any new, CEO. I mean, it's not just the communications chief who's gone. Let's face it, the CEO's just gone as well. So if they can start to turn their minds to the app as well, which is woefully falling behind in terms of its user interface, its capabilities, it just doesn't seem to be keeping up with the times, and is becoming harder and harder to use, and starts to, when people start to we'll talk about it a little bit when we talk about UX, but people's expectations of apps are kind of the bar is being raised all the time. So they do need to kind of get back onto that one and start developing. I mean, they've cut out third-party developers, which was mad in my opinion, but they need to get back onto that pretty quickly. So I think communications is the least of their problem.
One man that's doing very well on Twitter is Mark Pack. Mark, you've got over 9,000 followers, but you've got a picture of what? That's some chocolate on your profile.
I always advise clients, make sure you have a photo of yourself. So this is one case where it's do as I say, not as I do. I think Chris made some really good points there, and in fact, I was looking at running some Twitter ads for a client earlier today, and it's remarkably cheap to be able to run ads targeted at people who tweet about Newsnight, for example. Now, in the public affairs world, that's a really useful niche sort of political bubble influencer community. To be able to run messages targeted at that very geographically and demographically disparate community, but one with a real clear common interest, is really powerful. And what surprises me, partly as Chris says, is that Twitter doesn't offer more other similar really carefully targeted options, but also even for those that it does, it charges not very much. So if Twitter's listening, just please cover your ears at this point. But I can easily imagine people being willing to pay even a factor of 10 higher costs for those niche targeting opportunities where they do suit what they need at the moment. I struggle to see whether they're really optimizing their financial opportunities from their existing advertising model, and hence I guess we should be reasonably optimistic that they'll be able to find a model, given that they don't seem to be really maxing out even on what they're doing at the moment.
Well, coming up, we're going to be talking about the fact that, according to its CEO, Pinterest isn't a social network. So you can now also embed Facebook videos into your website. Everyone does it through YouTube now, of course, but Facebook could be a challenger to YouTube. And also, apparently, it's now website design that is dead and not SEO.
You're listening to This Week in Organic, live from London, on thisweekinorganic.com.
First of all, we've got a few shout-outs. So when you sign up to watch This Week in Organic Live, you're encouraged to socially share the show. And in return, we've got to give you a shout-out. So shout-outs this week to Tim Sylvester, Renilde DeWitt, and HMG Consulting. So you've all been tweeting about the show and encouraging your followers to join in. So thank you so much for that. And if you're watching and want a shout-out next week, then you know what to do. But moving on to the next topic, which is Pinterest CEO Ben Soberman says that Pinterest isn't a social network anymore. It's actually a catalogue of ideas. But is this positioning accurate? Or is it just to help emphasize maybe Pinterest's revenue model? Kit, what's your opinion on this one?
Well, I actually kind of agree with this. Kind of thinking about it at first, I was saying, I'm not sure who said it, but I also kind of thought, well, no, it's a social media site. But while there is the element of sharing and following and liking different pins, I think Pinterest is much more focused on the content itself that the people are using. The content itself that's being shared rather than the people that are using it. And I had a look at a little bit of data, and for instance, it seems that they drive more web traffic to other sites than Google Plus and LinkedIn and YouTube combined. So while they are a social media site, and obviously their users are always going to be important, I think it's the content itself that has a higher priority. Well, has a higher priority for them than other social sites.
Adam, are you a regular pinner?
I'll have to admit, David, I don't use Pinterest at all. My girlfriend, on the other hand, she's an avid user of Pinterest. In fact, it's gotten to be quite a bit of a joke at home. Whenever she's on her phone, I always seem to think, oh, so you're Pinteresting now. And I'll have to admit, I can, as an outsider looking in, obviously, I'm probably not best qualified to answer this because I'm not really a user, but just kind of looking as an outsider, I would absolutely, completely agree with that statement that it's more of a catalogue. Just looking at the way my girlfriend uses it, for example, it's literally just going through images, pictures, just watching through stuff. I know of other people who use it for ideas for perhaps weddings, decorating their homes. I know a lot of people are really just kind of using it more as a catalogue. And I guess from my perspective, as someone who doesn't really necessarily use it, certainly not as a social network anyway, I would definitely agree that it is really more of a catalogue than anything.
Mark, you look as if you're dying to get involved in this particular conversation.
Well, I'm a failed pinner, I guess, or Pinterest user. I'm not even quite sure what the terminology is, having sort of played around with it for a while and never really got it to work for myself. And I think, like Kit was saying, I mean, at first I just saw the phrase catalogue of interest and my heart sunk a bit. But on reflection, it is quite a good phrase. And I think what Pinterest could try to do is something that nobody has really cracked yet, which is letting people easily collate information from a very disparate range of sources. I mean, Storify is another way of sort of doing that, but just time and again, the different bits of information you want to pull together, some of it might be web stuff, it might be from a news site, it might be a YouTube clip, it might be a couple of tweets. Very often the stuff we want to pull together into one coherent package of this is our holiday planning stuff, or this is the information about a product, or this is the coverage around an event, comes from so many different places that I think actually Pinterest is probably onto a bit of a winner with trying to be that catalogue for us all.
Well, we've also got someone tweeting from Deep Crawl. Is that you, Kit, or is that someone else there? Oh, I think you've got yourself muted there.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, yes.
Yeah, I was just saying it's probably someone in the office.
Well, what about Pinterest? Is Pinterest a social network sorry, I shouldn't call it a social network, sorry. Is that a company that's caught your eye at all?
I don't use it at all. I mean, it's not my kind of thing, so I don't myself know very much about it.
What about you, Chris? Is Pinterest perhaps got a better business model than someone like Twitter?
Look, regardless of what the CEO says, Pinterest is not a catalogue of ideas, it's a shopping list. And it should try and very, very rapidly work out how to make itself the best shopping list on the planet before Amazon and Google work out how to do it better, because that's the best way I've ever seen it being used. It's the only way I use it. And I know they're experimenting with buy buttons, as is everybody else. They need to hurry up and get there fast, because it is the best tool for aggregating the silly thoughts, ideas, and then finding other people who've had other silly thoughts and ideas about how to what you want your room to look like, or things that you want to eat on a barbecue, or different plants you might want in your garden, to places you might want to go on a holiday. It is the best place to collect stuff like that, but they are all with an end in sight. And if there are ways to share them and to make them work better, I've only ever used it as a mood board professionally, which it is very good at. I like that a lot as a collection of different ideas. I can see his point, but frankly, if he wants to generate the revenue that they need to revenue as a business, they need to think of themselves as a shopping list, and they need to do it pretty fast. That is, I think, the best way of doing it. Thinking of themselves as a social media network is definitely wrong. There just aren't enough hours in the day to use as many social media networks as there are on the planet right now.
Johnny, I could see you nodding away there when Chris said Pinterest is a shopping list.
Yeah.
Obviously, you agree with that.
I think you've hit the nail on the head, and I think it's crying out for that buy button. For me, Pinterest is probably a tool. It's what we've said. It's a catalog, but it's a tool to be able to find inspiration for whatever you might be doing. But again, I'm not a big. I preach using Pinterest because I've seen it can bring a massive amount of organic traffic, and it can really help from an SEO point of view. But I don't really use it massively myself, and when I'm using it, it's for personal reasons, just to find a mood board type of thing. So, it's a shopping list.
So moving on to our penultimate topic, you can now embed autoplay Facebook video onto your site. So is Facebook likely to be the main challenger to YouTube when it comes to sharing your video online? Adam, what are your thoughts on that one there?
Yeah, I think that's it's going to be tough for them. I think YouTube have really kind of cornered the market on that. Obviously, as an SEO, our first and foremost is really to host videos yourself on your site rather than even use YouTube embedding YouTube videos. So I think it's a strange one because I think it will be tough for Facebook. It'll be interesting to see how they differentiate themselves from YouTube. Like I said, I think it will be tough for them to kind of overtake YouTube's dominance in that field.
Yeah, I mean, it depends how it works, I guess. I haven't really tried it out. But if it encourages traffic to be driven back to Facebook pages, maybe that could be a win-win because obviously people would be watching more videos from Facebook, driven back to Facebook, but then encouraging businesses to build that better community on Facebook pages. Because obviously in the last couple of years, organic reach has gone down significantly on pages. A lot of businesses are not using pages so much now, and it could possibly be a way to drive traffic back to that. But that's me just thinking off the top of my head.
Absolutely. I mean, then you could counter that with, well, what about the YouTube channel for a business? So driving it back to their YouTube channel as well might be more beneficial than perhaps their Facebook page if that's not working for them.
Johnny, you've recorded a few videos on YouTube. Do you think you might be tempted to test uploading them to Facebook and embedding them on your site from there instead?
No.
Okay, on to someone else.
Yeah. No, I don't think so. I don't think. No. I think for consumer, great. I think Facebook have got to do this. But I can't see a big take-up.
What about yourself, Kits? I see you nodding away there.
Yeah, I was just going to say that at least for now, YouTube is the primary video sharing site, and Facebook has a very different mission statement, I suppose. So unless they drastically change that and decide that they're going to take on YouTube, I don't think... there may be a challenger and they may take some views, but I don't think it's enough to kind of do anything seriously.
Mark, I know that you've been interviewed in quite a few different places through your political blog as well. I've seen you on BBC TV, all these kind of places. Can you imagine anyone actually taking your video and being more likely to share it? Because
oh, definitely. And I mean, we've experimented this a bit with our clients here, and I mean, in a way, the key controlling factor Facebook has is the rules of its newsfeed algorithm. And, very simply what Facebook does is if the video is natively uploaded to Facebook, it gets more prominence and therefore it gets more audience and more opportunity for sharing than if it's a video on YouTube or Vimeo or anywhere else. So there are many, excellent features about YouTube and Vimeo and other video sites. But the key advantage, if the audience you're wanting to get to is an audience that is in whole or in part on Facebook, is upload the video to Facebook and it will get to more of them. I mean, just as a very silly little example, the other day, during the Liberal Democrat leadership contest, I'm quite involved in the Liberal Democrats, and I got so bored with some of the official campaign videos that were coming out, I just sat down at my webcam for 45 seconds, recorded a not very good sort of ranting spoof of these standard videos, uploaded it directly to Facebook, and it got several hundred views, really quickly, in a way that had I uploaded it to YouTube and then linked to it, it would have probably deservedly sunk without trace. So I think that Facebook algorithm is absolutely crucial, and therefore if your audience is on Facebook, I think we'll see, just as we're seeing with the more serious examples with our clients, more and more people uploading it direct.
Chris, can you imagine in the next few months advising any clients at all to upload videos on Facebook instead of YouTube?
Absolutely. Mark is absolutely right. Facebook are on YouTube's tail. We've seen it time and time again. If you post a video to YouTube, you will get a bunch of likes and views according to the traffic that you've got on that channel. If you post the same video on Facebook, you will not only get the almost double or to triple the amount of likes, but you will get maybe 10 times the amount of views because of the ability to share it within the channel. Now, that is something that YouTube has. It demonstrates the massive difference between Facebook and YouTube, which is that YouTube is not a social network. Yes, there are people who comment, and there are comment trolls, and there's all sorts of things going on down there that you probably don't want to read. But what it really isn't is a connection between peers who are willingly and positively sharing content between them in a way that they want each other to see. It is just a repository, and it's just that, and that's fine. And I think people getting their heads around the fact that Facebook could be a repository for videos for time immemorial. Facebook probably, people do use it for photos, so they probably could get their head around that eventually. But I think just the sheer ability to share videos makes Facebook a very, very tempting medium particularly for brands to use for video. And I think it actually makes YouTube pale a little bit when you look at the effectiveness of the numbers themselves. I think the only thing I would say on that is that there is a very big difference in the quality of a video view on Facebook as opposed to a video view on YouTube. Because of the way that Facebook autoplays a video, it is very possible for people to be thumbing through their stream and for videos to play and for that to kind of start to register, or even to kind of pause for a minute and maybe they don't complete. But I think it still is probably fair to say that if somebody completes a view on YouTube, they are probably more engaged with you as a content producer or brand or whoever you happen to be than if they do so on Facebook. But even that, I could be persuaded otherwise. The other thing final thing I would say is, the Facebook video analytics platform is coming on leaps and bounds. It is much better than whatever I've seen from YouTube, and brands need the data to be able to prove what they're doing, and we're just not getting that data from YouTube. And the YouTube targeting absolutely sucks. And if you start to look at the data that you're going to able to get from Facebook, and you combine that with some if you look at the Atlas network, and then you start to think about sharing, which basically is an ad server that's tied onto the Facebook data that's in Facebook. It's the awesome power of that compared to YouTube is really gives them, I think, a chance to kind of take the crown. Perhaps not, as I say, as the default library for video content, but if you want to get seen and you want to get noticed, then I would definitely suggest you don't discount Facebook.
A lot of great things to think about there, so thanks for those comments. I'm certainly going to be trying Facebook video at some point over the next few weeks because I really like the concept of driving people to community, and you can't really do that with YouTube. And surely Google is getting a little bit scared in that they don't really have that social network, that word again. And what's happening with Google Plus, we can go down that rabbit hole, or perhaps we shouldn't go down that rabbit hole just now. In fact, let's move on to our final topic, and that is we regularly read articles that say SEO is dead, but Mashable recently published an article called Website Design is Dead. So they claim that website design patterns are now mature and that the future is in UX. However, the article was originally published by UX magazine, so perhaps a slight bias there. But are website designers as important as they once were? Mark, what's your opinion on that one there?
Yeah, normally, when you have a post on something like Mashable, there's a whole load of really negative, slagging off comments underneath, which are just best avoided. But to be honest, I think in this case, they've actually got it pretty much right about the post. I mean, its argument just seems to be really quite bizarre. It's certainly true that people more and more come across and consume content away from particularly the front page of a website, and even to a degree away from a website. But traffic levels to websites are still, absolutely mammoth. The amount of total page views across the websites on the internet each day is absolutely huge. And just because there are lots of templates that people can use, that doesn't mean design is dead. I mean, it's a bit like saying there is absolutely no role at all for designing a book. Because, hey, they're book covers. There are loads of templates you can pick from, and there are a few fonts that you can always use. And yet, go into a bookshop, look at a well-designed book compared to a badly designed book, and you can see the difference a designer makes. So, yeah, long live designers.
Long live designers. Kit, you agree with that one there?
Yeah, actually, it's kind of the front-end design side of things is something I can't comment on that much. However, I guess I think it's the same as with any digital channel. I think design and UX go hand in hand, and it's much like the PPC or social media have killed SEO. They used to be very much kind of siloed channels, and you work in your own little area. It just means the industry's changing, and they'll find new ways to work together. It's as simple as that.
Johnny, is it necessary, do you think, for website design and UX to be thought of at the same time, or can you just use templates that are available now and improve your UX by testing different templates?
Well, based on templates and versus design, I absolutely think design is the way forward. But actually, my take on this is quite different. My take on this is that the amount of mobile traffic and how that's increasing, and we're not far off the tipping point. It does question where design fits in, because on a mobile site, you're typically reducing as much design as possible, and you're really going for just the usability and the call to action type things. So it's an interesting debate. I don't think design is dead in the slightest, but I think how design is being done. I think ultimately websites should be designed for mobile first before desktop. But that has usability plays a massive part in that.
Chris, is website design dead?
So I have to admit, this is why I like this topic. It made me think back all those years to when I first started working in digital. Designing websites was what it was called, and frankly, the amount of wacky ways that we were trying to make people navigate through some appallingly designed, unique interfaces, which we thought were beautiful, really. Just makes me kind of cringe now, and thank God that CMSs took over and they now run the show, because now I don't have to learn Amazon's different way or not on the high streets new interface. I know that there's going to be a product stream in the middle, and there's going to be a buy bot on the right hand side, and it's going to be about this big, and it's going to go to I don't need the hassle of relearning somebody else's transaction design process. So thank God that has all been kind of brushed under the carpet. That's not to say that design is not important. I do think that interface design is important, and that comes back to what Johnny was saying, I think, around kind of the mobile side as well. Look, particularly as mobile comes on board, functionality rather than design is absolutely key. If you can't get something, Amazon puts absolute priority on the speed at which transactions can occur. Obviously prices and range and all of that. Range, it just says, well, just everything. That's a given. But the fact is that you have to make it as quick as possible for somebody to buy that thing or your toast. So any kind of extraneous, interesting design is going to get in the way of that process. And I think what's worse than that now is that people expect that degree of UX primacy, importance to be applied to all sorts of different sectors now. So people expect their bank to function as fast as Amazon does. People expect a retail site to be as quick as Gmail. That is and as obvious to use, and that is the design problem that we face right now, which is a UX issue again. So I'm afraid I actually agree with this title. It is all down to the it's all down to kind of user-centered design. We have to be kind of putting that first, and website design, I'm afraid, died a long time ago.
There are some beautiful templates about now. Things like lead pages and Unbounce can give you just beautiful templated websites. But if everyone starts using that, then perhaps the user gets a little bit blind and samey about everything. So perhaps shaking it up a little bit can be a good experiment, or at least for an A/B split test. I remember years ago, salt and vinegar crisps used to be blue, now they're green. And they changed with cheese and onion. What was that all about? But Adam, are you upset about this as I am?
Yeah, maybe not so much about the crisps, but certainly about the article. I have to admit I'm pretty biased about this. My whole avenue into SEO originated from web design. So I originated as one of those evil web designers, I guess. But I completely agree with the vast majority of what Mark and Kit and Johnny and Chris were saying. But for me, web design is still important. It's evolved. I think now you have to think that it's not just about web design. You do have to think about the UX. You do have to think about the SEO as well. I think if you go down the route saying web design is dead just because there are lots of amazing templates that are available, you could argue the same for SEO. There's a vast majority of plugins for WordPress now that you could just install that do your SEO for you. So by that count, you could say that SEO is dead. But I know we've all heard that term already. But I think for me, I agree with the vast majority of everyone there that web design, it's not dead. It's evolving, just as SEO has been evolving.
Yes, I mean, it's an attention-grabbing headline, but it also provokes some interesting discussion, I guess. That just about takes us to the end of this week's show. So, just time for a single takeaway and some sharing of find out more details from our guests. So, starting off with Mark.
One takeaway. I think if you think about all the different answers and discussions we've been having it shows just how important it is not to be narrowly focused on one skill. There's a lot of virtue in being really expert at one particular area, but to do almost any of those niches well, you have to know a lot about other areas as well. So I guess that's the key takeaway. If you want to find out more about me and my colleagues at work, we're at bluerubicon.com, or as you mentioned, you can find me on Twitter at MarkPack, complete with pictures of chocolate.
Lovely. And Kit, what would be your takeaway, and where can people find out more about you?
I think my takeaway would be to spend some time on Pinterest and start making some souvenirs. With regards to finding out more about the tool I work for, you can just go to deepcore.com, or you can follow us on Twitter, which is just @deepcore. And for myself, it's very simple, and it's @KitNichols.
Lovely. Okay. Thanks, and Kit. And we've also got Everon IT support tweeting. Really enjoyed this week's TWIO. Lots of great debate about social media, YouTube, and Pinterest. See you next week. So yeah, thanks for that tweet there. But let's move on to Johnny.
My two key takeaways. First of all, apply for the SEO manager's job at Google. Secondly, if you're going to design a website today or moving forward, then design for mobile first. If you're looking for me, then I'm on Twitter, JR Consultancy, or JohnnyRoss.com, no H, JohnnyRoss.com. Really good talking to you all, and thank you for having me.
Lovely. Thank you, Johnny. And Chris, what would be your takeaway, and where can people find out more about you?
David, thank you very much for having me. It's been a long time since I really kind of got my head around all things SEO, so thank you for giving me the chance to do that. And I think my takeaway is to go away and start just getting myself up to speed again. I think Adam's revealed that I know very little about hreflang, and I need to get back in there under the hood and start remembering all of those technical things that I think once upon a time I think I did know. But if anybody wants to contact with me afterwards, professionally, I'm at HMG Consulting UK, and personally, so I tweet under the handle of Chris Bland UK. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being on, and you provided a lot of great value in lots of areas, so nothing bad there at all, Chris.
My pleasure.
And Adam, what is your final takeaway, and where can people get a hold of you?
Thanks again, David. That was a very good intro from Chris, because my takeaway is actually to go and check your hreflang tag messages in Webmaster Tools. I think now that obviously Google are making it a little bit easier with the notifications, I think it's definitely time to maybe audit the hreflang tags on your site.
Great stuff. And Kit nodding away there, saying we can help with that as well.
Absolutely. And also, if you want to find out a bit more about the company I work for, Maxis, you can check out our website at maxisglobal.co.uk. Alternatively, I have my own website at adamwhittles.com, And you can find me on Twitter at Adam Whittles. Unfortunately, no chocolate bars.
Lovely. Well, all those links that everyone mentioned will be mentioned in the show notes there, where this post will be published. But I'm David Bain, head of growth here at analyticsseo.com, and you can also catch me interviewing online marketing gurus over at digitalmarketingradio.com. Now, if you're watching the show as a recording, remember to watch the next show live. So head over to thisweekinorganic.com and sign up to watch the next show in real time. But for those of you watching live, we've also got a video podcast on iTunes. So go directly to the show where it's at thisweekinorganic.com/iTunes. And remember to continue sharing your thoughts using the hashtag TWIO on Twitter. So it's just the 4 letters TWIO. Until next time, have a fantabulous weekend, and thank you all for joining us. Adios. Cheers, everyone. Thanks for being a part of it.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David.
Nice to meet you all.